Hello everyone, it's Jen from Old Tinker Studio. Welcome to the next Let's Make Blender 2.7 tutorial. In this tutorial, we will be modeling a low poly character. This tutorial assumes that you know the basics of Blender modeling. If you are new to Blender, I would recommend viewing my Blender Basics course before beginning this series. This tutorial was requested by CJCS777. Just a quick note, I'm not a character modeler. However, I said that I would make a tutorial on modeling a low poly character for CJCS777. So hopefully this tutorial will give you an idea of how to model a low poly character, and then you can go on to experiment and learn tricks from actual character modelers. You can download the reference images from my Google Drive. The link is in the description below. So let's begin by setting up our viewport. Make sure that you are in the cycles render. Then split your viewport into two vertical areas. In the left side viewport, open up your properties panel with your N key. And place a check mark next to background images and twirl that open, add image, and then open up the male front JPEG image. Under axis, change this to front, and then make sure that you are in front view, and make sure that you're in orthographic view. And you should see your image. Now if, like mine, the center of the reference image does not actually quite line up with the center of the cube, you can go ahead and right down here on the offset image, you can offset it. I'm just going to offset mine by 0.10, and that more or less gets it centered. This reference is just going to be a guide anyway. You can close that panel. Then over on the right side, again, make sure you're in orthographic view. Go into the right side view. Open up the properties panel. Select background images. Twirl it open. Add image. And then open up the male side JPEG. In all views, just make sure that this is set to right. And again, you can go ahead and offset your image a little bit to make it more centered with the cube. And then just close the properties panel. Now we're going to work on the head and neck. So tab into edit mode, and then subdivide the cube smooth. You can do this by hitting your W key and subdivide smooth. Using box select, delete the left side of the rounded cube, which is going to be our head, and add a mirror modifier. Don't forget to check clipping. And this little triangle up here at the top allows you to adjust your cage. If you click on that, it makes the left side solid, which makes it a little bit easier to see what you're doing. Go ahead and select the head. Move it up. Then we're going to scale the head to the desired size that we want it. Again, this is low poly, so you don't have to be exact. That's roughly the correct size that we want it. Then what you need to do is just select various vertices and edges and move them around to make sure that it is conforming to the look and size of a head. Then once you have the head made, go back into face mode and select these bottom rear faces of the head, and this is going to be our neck. And then extrude them down along the Z-axis to the clavicle. If you hit your Z key twice, that will make it actually extrude down along the Z-axis straight up and down. Down to the clavicle. And then again, use your vertices and your edges to make sure that this is properly scaled. Try to get it so it's sitting just above the shoulder area, just above the chest. Now we're going to work on the torso. So select your bottom faces again, and then extrude these down from the bottom of the neck to the chest. Just go to the top of the chest. Then use the vertices and edges to model the top of the chest to the proper size. Once you have the chest the way you want it, select the bottom two faces and extrude them down along the Z-axis until they are at the bottom of the rib cage. Then again, using your vertices and your edges, scale it to the proper size. Then again, select the bottom faces and then extrude them down to the top of the hips along the Z-axis. And scale your faces along the Z-axis so they're flat. You do this by hitting S to scale, Z for the axis, 0, enter. And make any necessary adjustments. Select the bottom faces, and this time we're going to extrude them along the Z-axis to the bottom of the torso. And then again, using your vertices and your edges, go ahead and shape the bottom of the torso. Make sure that you are selecting the very bottom and scaling it down into the V section of the bottom of the torso. Now we're going to start working on the arms and the shoulders. So in the left side view, what we need to do is round out some of these vertices and move them so we get roughly the shoulder in alignment, so it'll be easier to extrude the arms. So you should roughly have a bit of a rounded area right over the shoulder, and have a couple faces that we're going to use for an extrusion. Now in the front view, select these two edges that are connected to the shoulder and extrude them along the x-axis out to the outer edge of the shoulder. Then if need be, go ahead and use vertices and edges to shape the shoulder. Then once you have the shoulder in place and scaled as you want it, extrude the bottom face down to the elbow. You want to go just to the top of the elbow. Make sure that it's aligned with your reference image. Then again, using the edges and the vertices, go ahead and align the edges and the vertices to your reference image. Then once you have the upper arm set in place, select your bottom face and extrude it to the bottom of the elbow. And again, use edges and vertices to align the elbow up with your reference image. And select your bottom face again. And then extrude it to the top of the wrist. And use your edges and your vertices to shape the lower part of the arm. Then once you have the lower arm in place, select the bottom face and extrude down to the bottom of the wrist. And then for this, you pretty much just should need to simply just scale along the X and Y axes. Now for the hands, since this is a low poly model, we're just going to essentially give him like paddle hands. Let's go ahead and just extrude this bottom face down to the top of the thumb. And scale as needed. Then extrude the bottom face to the middle of the hand. And then go ahead and extrude it down to the bottom of the fingertips. Then simply scale the bottom face down so it's a bit more flat. Gives a little bit of a curve to the hand. And that's all we're going to do with the hands. Now we're going to move on to the legs and the feet. So select the faces at the bottom of the torso. And then extrude them along the Z-axis. Again, if you hit Z twice, you'll actually get the up and down Z-axis rather than the local Z-axis. And then extrude them down to the top of the knee. And again, just use your vertices and your edges to make sure that you have everything looking as it should. Select your bottom faces and scale them along the Z-axis, hitting S, then Z, then 0 to flatten them out. And you may need to do a little more tweaking once you flatten them out. And once you have the upper leg done, select your bottom faces, extrude them down along the Z-axis to the bottom of the knee. Make any changes that need to be changed. Make sure that's lining up with the reference. Then extrude these bottom faces again down to the top of the ankle. And then model the lower leg. Select your bottom two faces and then extrude them to the bottom of the ankle. If you want to, you can add a loop cut in the middle and scale it out along the x-axis just a little bit. And select your bottom faces again. And extrude down to the bottom of the foot. And then again, hit S, Z, 0 to make sure that they're flat. And then using your edges and your vertices, shape the foot. We're just going to make this look more like a shoe rather than a foot, kind of like we did with the hands. And once you get the back of the foot, the heel, the way you want it, go ahead and select your faces in the front. Extrude them out to approximately the middle of the foot where your arch would be. And select these front faces again. And scale them along the y-axis to 0 and make sure that they are flat on the front. Then extrude them to the back of the toes. And then extrude out to the end of the toes. And take the very front where the toes are and just go ahead and scale them down along the x-axis. Just a little bit. Give them a little bit of a shape. And in front view, select the entirety of the foot. Select all of the different faces. Make sure you get all of them. Don't forget the bottom faces. And then just scale them along the X. Give them a little bit more depth. If you see any problem areas, just go ahead and fix them. There's your low poly character model. I hope you found this useful. If you follow along with this tutorial or any of my tutorials, please tweet me your creations. The link is in the description. If you have any questions or suggestions for tutorials, please leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a good day.